Good afternoon. My name is Alan Stevenson. I'm the one that started this fundraiser, and the fundraiser is for my wife and I. We are caregivers for my mother-in-law. We've been caregivers now since February of 2016. We were actually enjoying a relaxing evening, and we got a phone call from my mother-in-law's cell phone. Susie and I were not married yet, but anyways, my mother-in-law lived in Georgia, and she was having a stroke. The person on the other line was a paramedic. They were trying to convince her to go to the hospital, and they spent 2 hours working with her, trying to get her to go. She was actually at her place of employment at the time in Atlanta, Georgia. And basically, we spent the time trying to convince her to go. She finally went. When they got her into the hospital, she began having another stroke. We were on the way to Georgia at the time. It's about a 13-hour drive after you include the stops. We dropped everything and just left. My wife and I both had a job at the time. We worked at a place in nearby where we lived, and so we got to Atlanta, and during this trip, kind of backing up a little bit, during this trip, we had to make a decision as to whether we were going to administer some medication to her to try to break up the clot. There's only like a 3-hour window on this medication. It's extremely dangerous, and we had no time by the time she made it to the hospital to really get an option to do it, to give her the medication. So that window passed. We then got to Georgia and met her in the hospital. She was extremely, she was having some psychotic episodes, and we were having to deal with a lot of that. As the days progressed, we ended up staying in Georgia for 38 days. For the first part, which we were in a hotel, which cost us about $600 in over $600 in lodging. That's not including food or anything. And we didn't have this kind of money just sitting around, so we had to come up with another option. And we eventually went to a place called the Atlanta Hospitality House, and they took us in, and that's where we stayed for the remainder of the time. We first had to get her mother-in-law into a position where she could get out of the hospital. I don't recall the dates, but I do know that it was several weeks before she got out of the hospital and put into another facility, a rehab facility. We were trying to get her transported to Texas, but there was just no way we could get her transferred. We tried everything. We didn't know she was going to live. She made it through the rehabilitation and made it to the point to where we could actually, she was stable enough to where we could actually go ahead and bring her home to Dallas, Texas, where we lived. And that's when everything began. She actually moved in with us at that point. 30 minutes prior to leaving from Georgia to Dallas, Texas, we had just finished packing a 26-foot U-Haul truck full of her stuff that was in her house that she rented with a roommate. Um, we had no help. It was me and my wife. We had to go, before we started packing, we had to go back to Texas, pick up my stepson and his friend, and then drive all the way back out there. And we all had to work together. It was 4 of us just packing stuff. Anyways, we got everything packed into the 26-foot U-Haul truck. We were ready to load everything up, and I got behind my mother-in-law's car to get my backpack out, and I was going to get some walkie-talkies out so we can back up the trailer and start working on loading up the vehicle onto the back. So, I mean, we were 20-30 minutes from leaving, and I'm reaching into the back of this SUV, and I just remember hearing terrible noises that I just did not recognize. The only thing I recognized was the squealing of tires. I had like no time to react. I turned and looked, and this car was coming straight at me. It was going to crush me between my mother-in-law's car and the car that was coming up the drive. Didn't expect a car coming at me at all. But when I turned around and saw this coming at me, I only had time to jump. So I jumped. The car struck my mother-in-law's car. I didn't know what was going to happen. It happened so fast, and I received some injuries from that. After he struck my mother-in-law's car, he went on to go through a fence and almost to the neighbor's house. The only thing that stopped him from hitting the neighbor's house was 2 railroad ties after the fence. My GoFundMe, or our GoFundMe, has some photos on there if you'd like to take a look at that. But it was, we had to go pick up my mother-in-law from the rehab facility, but I was now injured. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even walk. So we had to go to the hospital myself to address my own injuries, and then we weren't able to leave that day. So we ended up having to stay in another day and wake up the next day and go get my mother-in-law and then finally drive home. The drive home took us about 24 hours. It was one of the most trying times. That the evening before was, of course, extreme agonizing pain, but it was also just a lot of pain for me. And then we were tired, very tired. We wanted to stop and rest. We couldn't. We would stop and we'd try to rest, and my mother-in-law was having her psychotic episode. So the trip took us literally over 24 hours. We made it home and got my mother-in-law settled in. Fast forward to 2017, close to Christmas, I believe. My wife called me and said my mother-in-law had had another stroke. That was pretty difficult. Seeing her in the hospital, we went to the hospital and she was in bad shape. We didn't know what was going to happen. Her head was deformed from swelling. They ended up care flighting her to another hospital and did a craniectomy, removing a portion of her skull on, I believe it's the right side, to save her life and because the swelling was going to kill her. So anyways, we we finished that, got her back home after she was stable. Of course, the episodes continued until we finally got her medication straightened out. Um, she still has episodes. We have good days and bad days. Um, but she can't. She went from being mobile to where she could actually walk before the December 2017 stroke to not being able to walk at all. Her left side was basically paralyzed. She couldn't move her arms, or her arm, I'm sorry, and her leg. We had to. She couldn't sit up on her own. She couldn't go to the bathroom on her own, and that's where she was. All this time, we are paying for her medication out of pocket, trying to cut through government red tape to get some help, to pay for her medical bills and pay for her prescriptions and get, people out for rehab. And there's a lot of red tape to go through. We're still going through red tape. And now it is November 26th of 2019. And we're still just cutting through government red tape. It's been quite the ordeal. My wife and I, we got married in between that time, and we ended up buying a house. We bought the house and then found out that we were getting a gigantic tax bill. The tax bill was, I would say, probably over 3 times more than what we expected. Now we have to make up the difference on our mortgage and also pay for the next year's tax bill. Unfortunately, nobody really told us what the tax rate was or how much we were going to end up paying when we got here, obviously. But I also got some student loan mail and found out that that payment's going to start. Everything has been put on hold when it comes to my education, and I tried to put those loans on hold for as long as I can. I'm out of time. So I've got to start paying for student loans, and all that's doing is just adding more interest every day. We're 24 hours a day caregivers for my mother-in-law. We went on, prior to all this happening, we would have date nights, once or twice a week. Now we can't even get out of the house because we've got to care for her. We got to get her out of bed in the morning, brush her teeth, give her a shower, feed her, give her her medication. No joke, the medication that she has is absolutely just, there's tons of medication. She's got anti-seizure medication, cholesterol, blood pressure, all sorts of stuff. We have a nurse that pops in every once in a while just to check her vitals, but we're constantly going through, she's getting physical therapy, then all of a sudden she's not. So we have continued to just kind of bear down and deal with everything. My mother-in-law can sometimes get a little frustrated. She wants she wants to she doesn't want to be in the, you know, obviously she wants to be able to walk. She can't do that stuff. She wants to do stuff. She can't do stuff. Um, and she goes through a lot of really bad episodes where she just, you know, honestly, she just doesn't. I mean, she doesn't want to. Sometimes she says it, I don't want to live anymore. But it's hard to watch, especially when we have kids around. I have a 12-year-old daughter. Um, but we're reaching out because we have hit so many roadblocks. I can't tell you how many times we've hit a roadblock to getting assistance with the government. We don't have any legal help. My mother-in-law has no end-of-life care options. Um, she has no life insurance. We have no money for funeral for her. And then we also have all our own stuff that we're having to put on hold. My wife can't work. She's got to care for my mother-in-law. And it's just become really, really, really difficult. So this is why we started the GoFundMe page. And while we're trying to get this going, um, I don't want this to all be, sad. But there is some urgency here. We need help. We can't do this alone. We've been doing this now and for years, and it's just a big circle, and we need help. So please take some time, if you would, to read our story. Um, if you have any suggestions, we're open to suggestions. We're constantly trying to cut through the red tape. There's a lot of legal stuff that we need wrapped up before her, something were to happen to her. We don't know how much longer she's got. The doctor didn't even think she'd make it this long. So um, there's a lot of urgency here. Um, and anything that you could help us with would be greatly appreciated. To be honest with you, just getting this story out and sharing it with others would be we'd be so grateful for that. I mean, just hitting the share button and sharing our story would be like, it would be great. If you have the funds to do so and you can make a donation, please. We definitely need the help right now. It's been a struggle for many years now, and we don't know what to do next. So again, please just take time if you can, read our story, share it, put it on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We started a hashtag, Stevenson Caregivers. I don't know if it's working. I tried looking up last night and I didn't see anything. So, but you can type in Facebook, www.facebook.com/ and then put in Stevenson Caregivers, or even do a search, Stevenson Caregivers. And our Facebook page will pop up. And then you can get access to the link there. Anybody can. I'm working on a website. We'll get that going soon, and we'll take it from there. But we just want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to this video, and that's all. You guys, hope everybody has. This is the holidays, so Thanksgiving's coming up. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving, and thank you so much for your time listening to this video. Have a great day.